In today's session, we talk about the Spring Data JPA, and in Spring Data JPA, we'll talk about what is the JPA and how it's getting used, and what down the line architecture they are using, and internals about the JPA. Yeah. So in a traditional approach, if you are aware, in traditional approach, we are generally first creating a connection. That connection, we are using that connection. We are writing some statements. That statements we are appending with a query. That query we are executing in a code, getting the result set and preparing a collection, and they are passing to the next service. Okay, these are 6 to 7 steps generally we are following in a traditional Java application. So as the application evolves, these are the redundant code, so no need to write a multiple times same code. Okay, so what is in a Spring Boot means any framework provides the support for a faster development. So whatever things we are doing redundantly, that get removed in a framework. So the Spring Boot Data JPA do same thing, like a no code means if you see the benefits, it's a no code repository, redundant boilerplate code, and generate the queries. All the things it provided. So means whatever we are writing here, that code already written for us by Spring Boot. The whatever boilerplate code means connection, statement, query, we don't need to bother about, and automatically whatever we are writing a queries here, Spring Boot write for us. If you say .save, that's it. You just need to pass the object. It automatically convert into query because it's a predefined query. Okay, that is basically known about this type three combination of these three things: no code repository, redundant boilerplate, and generated queries that provided by Spring Boot JPS. Okay, that's the basic about the Spring Data JPA. Okay, so as a Spring Data JPA, the basic structure, you need to define one entity. Okay, at the entity, and one repository, like at the repository. Okay, in entity you need to define that your class employee, and here the column name means the column which is exact name with the mapping with the your class, like a DAV thing. And in a repository you just need to define which repository out of these three you want. Okay, we'll see what is a CRUD repository. So CRUD repository is a basically combination of three things. First one is a create. C came from create, R came from read, U came from update, and D came from delete. Okay, so all this functionality provided. Create means if you call save, automatically create update happen. For a read, you have find and find all methods provided by JPA, and delete method is there. Okay, so these are the method provided by CRUD repository. No need to write anything for these function if you want to use. Apart from pagination and the sorting thing, if you want order by, means if I getting find all, order by ID, if I define that function, no need to do something special about this function. Just define in a structured or a standard way all the data you will get in order format. That time you need to extend your repository with the interface with the pagination and sortable repository. Okay, and all the function from CRUD repository came here. Additionally, you will get a pagination and sorting repository. Next one is a JPA repository. In JPA repository, if you want entity related functions like flush and persist, all things you will get at a JPA repository. So this structure like this means if you have JPA repository, by default you will get a CRUD and pagination sorting things functionality. If you have pagination and sorting repository, all the CRUD you will get at here at this location. Okay, yeah, that's the three type of repositories. Apart from these, these are the three ways using these repositories you can save the data, but JPA provide 4 more ways to do the database operation. Like if you want to on duplicate update, JPA not provide any function. You need to write a native queries and execute that. So how you are going to do that? So there are the 4 ways for that. So first one is the entity manager. Just go and create entity manager object, and through the entity manager create a query and execute that query. Another one is the JPQL, Java Persistent Query Language. It's not SQL, but it's a similar kind of SQL, and you can easily execute that JPQL on a database using the data repository. Criteria API, it's additional, means whenever you want to search the data from the database as per your specification, then you can use this criteria API. JPA is a Java Persistent API. Similarly, criteria API, this is also one kind of API. Using that, you can do search on the data, not required to directly write the queries. You can, through the similar way like a JPA, you can write the criteria APIs. Last one is the JDBC template. Using the JDBC template also, you can do all the operation on a database, DML operations. Okay. Yeah, these are the basic things about means what are the ways to store the data and get the data and how to fire the queries. Generally, most of the people, I don't know how many people are know, but JPA is a Java persistent API. Using this, Hibernate is actually getting built. Okay, Hibernate is built on top of a JPA. So whatever functionality provided by JPA, that API used by Hibernate and built by Hibernate getting built. Hibernate is a ORM. ORM means object relational mapping. What is object relational mapping? So if you have the employee as a class like entity, and here you have three fields: ID, name, and address, and you have a database, and in a database you have an employee as a table, and here have the three columns for that: ID, name, and address. Each one is a map with each other. That is known as a object relational mapping. Each one have the mapping, means in our application maintain that mapping. Okay, yeah, that's the basic in ORM and Hibernate section. We'll see about the architecture of JPA, means how internally it's look like and when objects are created and stuff. So in a Java persistent architecture, Java persistent API architecture, there are first one object which is a persistent. This a persistent object is created whenever application are start, and this is getting used to database property. We are defining an application property. That property is getting used to create a connection and all the related objects. Apart from that persistent, we have entity manager factory, and entity manager factory manage all the entities and entity managers, because one application have a different connections. Each connection map with one entity manager, and one entity manager have the number of tables. Each table is a represent entity, and all this stuff managed by the entity manager. Okay, entity manager have two things. One is the entity transaction, because one database have the connection details and connection that is managed by entity transaction, and entity transaction is responsible to database commit and database rollback, and the access the data and the do the DDL and DML option. There is a query is the class, which query is responsible to create a SQL and JPQL. Yeah, that's the basic thing. And persistent unit also there, which is connected with the entity manager factory, and they are work with the sync to update the data or do the transactional related thing. Okay, so in this white box, whatever is there, it's the hiding from us. We are currently only getting the entities which we are defining. So entity directly talk with the entity manager, because I already explained that suppose this is a org database, and we have the employee is the class, department is a class, then again employee department, salary is a class. All the stuffs are the entities. All the entities are mapping with the entity manager, and per entity manager have the transaction, and per entity manager have the multiple queries for each table and manipulate that data. All these things are managed by the entity manager factory. Okay, so suppose we have two database. One is the employee org database, and one is the vendor database. So all these things are these two database managed by the entity manager factory, and for org and vendor we have different connection. So all the things have an entity transaction. One entity manager have one transaction, means org have one connection, vendor have one connection. That's why here written a one entity manager have one entity transaction, and here star maintaining means one entity manager have the multiple queries, because org have the three tables as per example. So these many queries get fired, multiple queries to perform operation on these table. Okay, that's the basic about the internal structure look like. Okay, in a JPA class relationship, whatever is present into the yellow thing, this is the host application, means this is our Java application or a Spring Boot application, and ORM layer is the internals for internal for us. Currently this is the abstraction thing. So when you say dot save, that time Java persistent API gets called. Java persistent API calls the ORM vendors, and ORM vendors convert that query to the database and fire it to the database. Okay, ORM vendors are in here. There are different vendors like MyBatis, Hibernate, multiple things are there. So based upon your requirement, you will use that ORM vendor and you will connect with the database. When you fire the save the means when you write the dot save, it not mean like dot save function directly execute on database. There are 3-4 layer in between it, and after that it get executed on a database. Okay, that's the flow of the from dot save to database. Yeah. Okay, we'll see one example of the how getting data saved into database. So yeah, so as in this example, if you see that I this is a user record, this is a class, and user record I defined the table, means map the table and the class, means variable and a table variable name and a column name and class name with the table name. Okay, whatever table name I define as a class name, and column are mapped with the variable. variables in a class. Okay, these are the mapping we need to do. Okay, and then class record is okay. So public interface, this is my repository. It extends code repository, means code repository I am getting the code functionality by default, means create, read, and all the stuff implicitly it's defined. Currently this class is a blank, means we need not to write a single line of code to get this functionality or get this function. Okay, this is the definition. So how you define the user repository, but next question is how to get to use that user repository. So suppose this is my service I defined as a service, and user service I auto wire this user repository, whichever I will define at the bottom of this class, and here I am getting the record. So if you see here user repository, I am directly calling find all. If you see here user repository, I am directly calling save and passing the record object, but here there is a no code in this function. This is just a simple blank. So without writing any code, you can use the predefined function from this repository. If you want extra additional, you can write it here, but without writing single code, you can get maximum functionality out of it. Yeah, this is a simple example. If you have any additional questions how to write a custom query, you can let me know. We'll discuss more about the custom queries and how to write that, how to execute that. That's it for today's session. Yeah, thanks all. Bye.